Hi, everybody. Welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. Former Hamas leader calls for jihad across Arab world this Friday. That's tomorrow. And by the way, tomorrow is Friday the 13th. So there's been a call for a worldwide Islamic jihad. And we're going to look at everything that's been said. Things just keep getting crazier and crazier. This video is going to be packed full of updates and information and escalations, and there's so much that we're going to cover here. And then at the end, I want to go over the next misconception on my quotes common misconceptions spreadsheet. The misconception that we can't really know when it's going to happen. It could be now or 100 years from now, referring to the second coming, which is absolutely not true. So before we get into all these updates and what's going on with Israel and how things are escalating very quickly, new groups are joining in. Israel said something interesting. I'm going to show you what they said. Before we get into that, let me show you the Flood the Earth Challenge. I haven't updated it since last time, but in case you didn't see it last time, we are now at 7,000. We're at 7,080 copies of the Book of Mormon that have been shared. And for this month, we have a total of 4 people that are meeting with the missionaries. So that's really good. Hopefully we'll see some baptisms. I don't know, but things are looking really good. Consider joining the Flood the Earth Challenge. Just leave me a comment or send me an email. Keep it short. Just let me know how many copies of the Book of Mormon you've shared and include #flood so it's easy for me to find it. Okay, so let's get into this and see what this is all about. Reuters, former Hamas chief calls for protests, neighbors to join war against Israel. Now, this title here, it's excluding the word jihad. He called for jihad. And yes, technically he's calling for protests, but I think everybody that's familiar with the word jihad knows that that kind of implies more, or at least it in the past historically has meant more. I know that, there's different definitions of it, but when it comes to terrorist groups and things that have happened since 9/11, it's typically meant taking action, taking up arms. And so even if he's just calling for quote unquote protests tomorrow, for those that are looking for a rallying call, this could be more than just protests. But let me read you exactly what he said. And then after this, we are going to look at all the very key things that Hamas has said since this conflict began that seem to point to the fact that they're being very serious and that their intent, their objective is to actually destroy Israel and get everybody else to join them in destroying Israel. That this isn't like previous conflicts. Like this is like really it, in their minds. Okay, so former Hamas chief Khalid Mashal called for protests across the Muslim world on Friday in support of Palestinians and for those peoples of neighboring countries to join the fight against Israel. Okay, so he's putting out this call for people outside Israel to join in. Quote, "We must head to the squares and streets of the Arab and Islamic world on Friday." Mish'al, who currently heads Hamas's diaspora office, said in a recorded statement sent to Reuters. Now, let me see if I can find that video really quick just to give you an idea. Okay, this has already been taking place. This video in particular, this is taking place in Austria. And you can see people in the streets. It's not Friday yet. It's already been going on ever since Saturday. Like I've said many times, and maybe you've seen it too if you're on X. But there have been these kind of protests and demonstrations and rallies and stuff like that that's been already taking place all over the world. So if he's calling for more, like a worldwide thing tomorrow, it's probably going to be even more intense than this. And I'm afraid it'll probably include violence in Israel. All right, but going back to this. Okay, Misha'al, who is based in Qatar, said the governments and peoples of Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, and Egypt have a bigger duty to support the Palestinians. So as you may or may not know, let me just pull it up. Those are all the countries that surround, that share a border with Israel. Let's go over here, turn on borders and labels. Okay. Just so you can visualize it, here's Egypt right here. Here's Jordan over here. And then up here we have Syria and, it's Jordan. Okay. Egypt, Jordan, Syria, and Lebanon. So all the bordering countries. Okay, so Mishaal, who is based in Qatar, said the governments and peoples of Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, and Egypt have a bigger duty to support the Palestinians. Quote, tribes of Jordan, sons of Jordan, brothers and sisters of Jordan, this is a moment of truth. And the borders are close to you. You all know your responsibility, Mishaal said. Jordan and Lebanon are home to the largest number of Palestinian refugees. So Jordan right here, and then Lebanon up to the north. And before the land was given to Israel in 1948, essentially the Palestinians were just the same people as the Jordanians. It was all the same group. So really, historically, from what I understand, Palestinians are really just Jordanians. And I'm sure many of them, after Israel gained its independence, went to Jordan because same people. And so they want it back. Some of them, like some of those families that used to be in Israel. Okay, quote, to all scholars who teach jihad, to all who teach and learn, this is a moment for the application of theories, Mishaal said. So this is just a continuation of everything that's been said since Saturday. They are really like reaching out to everybody and anybody that will join in. I think that's why this is so serious, and it's already starting to work. I'm about to show you later on. There's new violence in the West Bank by one group that has decided to heed the call, and it's probably going to continue. Let's go to New York Post. Ex-Hamas chief calls on Islamic world to stage global protests against Israel on Friday. There's one thing I wanted to read here. Across the world, demonstrations have sprung up daily for both sides in the conflict, with many leading to clashes between Palestinian and Israeli sympathizers in city streets. And there are plenty of videos of that, like the one that I just showed you. There is no shortage. Okay, before we get into all the different quotes from Hamas, like where it shows you that they really are intent on having this be the final battle, there's a new escalation on the side of Israel, or at least a clarification. So this is BBC News. Every Hamas member is a dead man, Netanyahu says. Now, this article is from 16 hours ago. Before that, it was a little bit more ambiguous. We knew that Israel was going to take away Hamas's military capabilities and its governance. And if you watched the video where I was talking about that, I was wondering out loud, does that simply mean, you know, they're going to destroy all military equipment, they're going to take prisoners, they're going to kill some in combat, and, you know, but are they going to like kill all of them? Well, clarification came that yes, they're going to kill all of them. Okay, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said every Hamas member was, quote unquote, a dead man after the first meeting of his country's emergency government. Alongside him, opposition figure Benny Gantz said it was, quote unquote, a time for war. But U.S. President Joe Biden said he had spoken to Mr. Netanyahu and made it clear that Israel must, quote, operate by the rules of war, end quote. Mr. Biden said he understood the anger and frustration of the Israeli people, but urged Israel to adhere to the principles of the Geneva Conventions. He also warned Iran, which has welcomed the Hamas attack, to, quote unquote, be careful. Okay, from a statement, quote, during the war period, no bills or government decisions will be promoted that do not concern the conduct of the war. Also, senior opponents will be automatically all senior appointments will be automatically extended during the war period. All right, so there is going to be no government business except for war during this time. And Israel is going to kill everyone that's part of Hamas if he's being serious, and I think that he is. So that's going to upset some people, and I can understand why they are going to do that and why I think they probably have to do that. You know, when we were talking to Ellie Michelle, and I hope that you watched that interview, that was just like a day or two ago. It was like 2 days ago. He was talking about the fact that, you know, they're so radicalized and so indoctrinated in hate that that's the only solution. Now, I'm not going to comment on that. I don't know. I just prefer to stick with what I said in the follow-up video, where we need to realize that we can't just paint everybody with the same brush. There are innocents, you know. As far as people that are part of Hamas, I'm not so sure about that, because they made the choice to be part of what they know is viewed as a terrorist group and has been declared a terrorist group by the United States and others. So members of Hamas, yeah, maybe that's what has to happen. But as far as the Palestinians as a people, because not all Palestinians are part of Hamas, there's definitely going to be innocents. So, but either way, if they do make good on their threats and they kill every member of Hamas, then that's, I feel like, undoubtedly just common sense says that that's going to take things to the next level. All right, so now let's go ahead and do the review of everything that's been said since this began, which illustrates their intent, like their real, true, honest intent, Hamas. Okay, where did it go? I lost it. Okay. So this quote, this is from the shadowy leader of Hamas military wing, Mohammed Deif. Quote, "Enough is enough." End quote. Deif, who does not appear in public, said in the recorded message, he said the attack was only the start of what he called, quote, Operation Al-Aqsa Storm, end quote, and called on Palestinians from East Jerusalem to northern Israel to join the fight. Okay, so we've talked about this before. The fact that that's what they're naming this operation or this war from their point of view. The name itself is a call out for everybody to join in. Everybody. So when he says from East Jerusalem to northern Israel, he's talking about the better part, probably the larger part of the West Bank, and, you know, to include Israeli Arabs that live in Israel. So again, in Al-Aqsa, if you've missed all my videos or you don't know, Al-Aqsa is the third holiest place in Islam. A lot of people think that it's the Dome of the Rock. It's not, although it's part of the same compound. It's actually this mosque right here called Al-Aqsa Mosque. And this is what they want. They don't want Israel having any presence really on the Temple Mount, to have any control. You know, this is the big fight. This is ultimately what almost everything is about the Temple Mount and Al-Aqsa Mosque. So calling it Al-Aqsa Storm and Al-Aqsa Flood, if you're someone that's upset about Israel and its presence in the country, you know, like you're a Palestinian, it's like a really easy title and a really easy thing to understand. Okay, this is different. This is really it. Let's do this. You know, the time has come. Okay. Is that it? No, there's some more down here. Hamas said it had planned for a potentially long fight. Quote, "We are prepared for all options, including all-out war." The deputy head of the Hamas political bureau, Salah al-Arori, told Al Jazeera TV. Continuing, he says, "We are ready to do whatever is necessary for the dignity and freedom of our people." Okay, that's it for that article. Times of Israel. Okay, Hamas says it has launched 5,000 rockets at Israel in an early morning surprise attack it calls, quote unquote, Operation Al-Aqsa Flood. So again, if you know Arabic, please let me know if like flood and storm are like the same thing. Is that why we're getting these two different versions, or do they have two different names? One is Operation Al-Aqsa Storm. The other one is Operation Al-Aqsa Flood. Either way, they both put the idea in your mind that they want to take the Temple Mount away from Israelis. Not that Israelis have it, but they want to take control of the Temple Mount completely and East Jerusalem, and then even further than that, just destroy Israel. Mohammed Deif, the Hamas military commander, issues a statement saying that the ongoing attacks are in retaliation for Israel's quote-unquote desecration of the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem. Quote, today, the people are bringing back the revolution and reviving the March of Return. And that's capitalized, March of Return, he says. So here's like another phrase that they're using to put in people's mind alongside Al-Aqsa Flood, March of Return, meaning like we're taking it back. That's what it says to me. He urges Arabs in Jerusalem and inside Israel, in the Negev, the Galilee, in northern Israel, quote, set the earth on fire under the feet of the occupiers. So here you have more incitement to rebel, to have a revolution, to go to war, however you want to term it. And when he says those different locations, he's essentially referring to the entirety of Israel. Those are some of the major regions. He further calls on, quote, Islamic resistance in Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon. So this is similar to the call out for a global jihad tomorrow, although that call included Egypt, whereas this one, it was just Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon. Wait, it says Lebanon twice. Maybe, looks like there was maybe a typo. Maybe they did mean to include Egypt. So anyway, from the very beginning, since this started, they were calling out different groups in these different countries. Countries with terror movements that are militarily supported by Iran to, quote, merge their resistance with that of the Palestinians today. So again, everyone needs to come together. This is the time. Let's do it. Merge their resistance and, quote, start marching towards Palestine now. Their objective is clear, and it looks like I've already covered this, but in case you missed it, it looks like their call really is getting a response all the way to Afghanistan, the Taliban. Remember, here's Israel. Afghanistan is way in the heck over here. You have to go through, if you're going from Israel, you'd have to go through like Jordan or Syria, Iraq, Iran, and then Afghanistan is over here. So the Taliban wants to come, and I'll read what it says. The Taliban has reportedly asked Iran for passage to Israel to help Hamas continue its terror against the Jewish state, according to multiple foreign media reports from October 7th, which is the day that this started. The Taliban has allegedly asked for passage to, quote unquote, conquer Jerusalem if Iran, Jordan, and Iraq are willing to support their troops. And I haven't seen any updates about that, but if I do, I'll let you know. Okay, Reuters. This is who we're going to be quoting is Ismail Haniyeh, the leader of the Palestinian Islamist group Hamas. Haniyeh also said armed Palestinian factions intend to expand the ongoing battle in Gaza to the West Bank and Jerusalem. Quote, the battle moved into the heart of the Zionist entity, he said. So just they're being very clear. They're being very clear that they want this to be the final conflict to destroy Israel, and they're calling on everybody. In this case, he said Gaza, he wants to expand it from Gaza to the West Bank and Jerusalem. Here's the West Bank, and then Jerusalem is right here. Right? So the goal really, like, there's different goals, obviously, the destruction of Israel in general, but a central feature of this war is Jerusalem. This is why there's potential that this could actually be the final war, Gog and Magog, and the final battle, Armageddon, and ultimately the actual siege on Jerusalem, which will bring about Christ coming to save the Jews from their enemies. They're calling for that attack on Jerusalem. Okay, next one. Daniel Hagari, an Israeli army spokesperson, said that the group attacked from... Oh no. Did it mess up my highlights? Or did I just not... Okay, no, here we go. Okay. Quote, "We want the international community to stop atrocities in Gaza against Palestinian people, our holy sites like Al-Aqsa. All these things are the reason behind starting this battle," he said. Quote, "This is the day of the greatest battle." Those are big words. This is the day of the greatest battle to end the last occupation on earth. Mohammed Daif, the Hamas military commander, said, adding that 5,000 rockets were launched. And then he continues, "Everyone who listen to this. Everyone who has a gun should take it out. The time has come." All right, and then after that, Hamas called on, quote, "the resistance fighters in the West Bank, as well as our Arab and Islamic nations," end quote, to join the battle in a statement posted on Telegram. They are really trying to get this thing going. They really, truly, seriously are. And then here's the last one before we move on to other details that are emerging. Okay, senior Hamas member Salah al-Arori told Al Jazeera Arabic on Saturday that Hamas is ready, quote, "for all options, including a war and an escalation on all levels. We are ready for the worst case scenario, including a ground invasion." And let me just stop right here, which has not taken place yet. The troops are down there, and, well, I mean, when Netanyahu says that every member of Hamas is a dead man, that's essentially a confirmation that it is absolutely going to happen. There is going to be a ground invasion. Because if there's not a ground invasion, then the only other way to make every Hamas member a dead man is destroying the entire thing with bombs, you know? And that would obviously include that would kill a lot of civilians. So I don't think that's an option. So this ground invasion is essentially for sure. Okay, but continuing with the quote, which will be the best for us to decide the ending of this battle. So, like I've been saying, I think that they truly wanted for Israel to launch a ground invasion of the Gaza Strip, because they know that if Israel does that, then it'll ignite other groups and people to join in. I think that was the whole reason behind the brutal attacks on Saturday, because they had to make it really bloody, as horrific as possible, and then take hostages and take them back to Gaza. They had to provoke Israel to do this because they need Israel to do the ground invasion in order for things to go crazy, to get Hezbollah and possibly some of these nations. I don't know. Maybe some of these nations to join in. We talked about this. We talked about the fact that Islam is a very big religion. It's, I think it was like 1.8 billion or 1.2. I don't know, but it's like 24% of the global population. And so if you're trying to get as much support as possible and you're trying to win over the people that are kind of like on the fence and in the middle, those people may need a little bit more and that little bit may be the ground invasion, and then they will join in and lend their support, even if it's just support in general, not necessarily manpower or even financial, but just support. So, okay, let's move on to this. There's a couple articles that discuss this. This one's from Toronto Star, and it talks about the fact that Israel is going to have essentially like a three front war as of right now. So let's read some of this. Israel is marching to war with Hamas, with one eye peering existentially over its shoulder as the threat of Iranian-backed militant groups in neighboring Lebanon and Syria that could be ordered to join the conflict at any moment. Mideast observers say the risk of an escalation, bringing a range of fighters and Islamic militant groups to the side of Hamas, the Palestinian organization that carried out the brazen attacks and horrid massacres last weekend from its base in the Gaza Strip, is dangerously real. Quote, I think if Iran believes this is an opportunity to weaken seriously Israel or finish it, they'll do it, said Meir Tamari, an Iran and Middle East lecturer at Reichman University in Tel Aviv. Continuing, he says, they've got appetite. The Hamas attack was extremely successful. Okay, let's go down a little bit. And there could still be more. Quote, it could be Lebanon, Gaza, the West Bank, and the Israeli Arabs, said Ephraim Inbar, president of the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security. He was referring to the troubling prospect of Israel being forced to do battle against Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, Palestinian fighters in the larger Israeli-occupied West Bank, as well as the 1/5 of the Israeli population who are Muslims, but live freely among the Jewish majority. See, that's what I was talking about a couple of videos ago, and I think I brought it up a couple times. It's not like you have like very even, it's not like you have very clearly defined geographic areas. Like you have the Gaza Strip, right? You have the West Bank, you have up here Hezbollah, but on top of that, throughout Israel itself, it's all mixed. You have Israeli Arabs that live throughout the country. So, and it's a very small country to begin with. So to get from Jenin to Caesarea, I don't think it's going to be that far of a drive. Now, I don't know what kind of like obstacles you'd have to go through to get there, like military checkpoints or border crossings or whatever. But just relatively speaking, it's easy to get around because it's a small country. But on top of that, it's very mixed, especially Jerusalem. There are many, many Muslims that live here in the city and in the outskirts of the city. Okay, that sort of widespread existential threat to Israel has lingered since the country's founding in 1948. In a speech the day after Israel was recognized as a nation, then Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion noted that Egypt had bombed Tel Aviv and, quote, our country is being invaded from the north, east, and south by the regular armies of the neighboring Arab states. We must never forget that our security ultimately depends on our own might, Ben-Gurion said. Now, I thought that was a kind of an interesting thing to say. Remember, this is basically like their George Washington. It's their first prime minister. And he said that their security depends on their own might. Now, when Israel became a nation, it was actually mostly a secular country and a secular people. Over time, it's become more religious as more people have immigrated and made aliyah to Israel. It's become more and more religious, but that is almost like a prophetic thing that he just said, because when it comes down to it, when the final conflict happens, when Jerusalem is under siege and Israel is all but destroyed, it's not going to depend on their own might, because Christ is going to come and he's going to save the Jews in their time of trouble. And hopefully that day is soon, so that everything, all this horribleness is over with, both in Israel, but just this wicked world in general. We don't want any of this to happen, but we know that it's necessary. It's prophesied and it's necessary before the second coming. But I find it very interesting that he said that. Okay, later on, quote, does Hezbollah want war right now? I don't know, to be honest with you, said Javed Anfar. Continuing, he says, I don't think so, but we also didn't think Hamas would want a war because it didn't want to risk its economy being devastated, and we were wrong. End quote. If it does decide to take up the fight in earnest, the Lebanese group, which, like Hamas, is a listed terrorist organization in Canada, has significant offensive capabilities, Inbar noted. Quote, Hezbollah has a tremendous missile arsenal, which could cause great damage to Israel. They have some commando forces that were trained to invade Israel and take over Israeli towns and settlements. So that's pretty crazy. Now, I think they're going to have a hard time doing that right now because after the attack by Hamas in the south, Israel has amassed troops up here in the border, on the border with Lebanon. And I think there was one town that they had evacuated in anticipation of conflict with Hezbollah up here. Okay. Continuing with the quote, of course, we have an air force that could destroy Lebanon. I definitely could see an escalation in this situation, and this is precisely what the Americans don't want to see, end quote. U.S. President Joe Biden took the dramatic step of ordering a naval aircraft carrier, the USS Gerald R. Ford, to drop anchor off the coast of Israel, along with its fleet of fighter jets. The hulking vessel is intended to cast a shadow long enough to be noticed by and to deter Iran. This is Biden, to any country, any organization, anyone thinking of taking advantage of this situation, I have one word: don't. All right. Later, it says, if the war that Israel has declared against Hamas branches out into a multi-front campaign with fighting against Hezbollah or Islamic Jihad in Lebanon, or against armed groups in Syria, which also has close ties to Iran, it will likely be the leadership of the Islamic regime in Tehran, which is Iran, that orders them into the fight. And there's reports that it was Iran that gave Hamas the go-ahead to launch this operation. It seems to me that they're in control of all the groups, primarily because they're financial backing, but also they just provide this this coordination. So it's like they're all together. You know, these different groups are just proxies. Javed Anfar has noted that there is a strategic logic for the Iranian leadership to direct Hamas to attack Israel at this particular moment. Israeli civil society, the military, and the intelligence services were distracted by a divisive national debate on a judicial reform bill that aimed to reduce the powers of the Supreme Court to block or overturn laws. And we've talked a lot about that this year. And this is what I was worried about, because they were talking about how big these protests were and how much chaos it was causing inside the country. And I was wondering, why aren't they doing it right now? I would think that they would attack now, because when is there ever going to be a time like this? Well, they did. They did it on the 7th of October. The Americans had their attention focused on arming Ukraine for the fight against Russia and the looming threat of China. Yeah, we've talked about that too. And Israel was getting close to an agreement to, quote unquote, normalize its relations with Saudi Arabia, Iran's longtime nemesis. And for Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, who's 84 years old, quote, such an opportunity may not rise again, end quote. Javed Anfar wrote on X, the social media platform. By the way, let's see, phone call between Iran and Saudi Arabia. I forgot to bring this up. Let's just pull up this one. This is Reuters. Iran president, Saudi crown prince speak for first time since ties restored. And I've read that essentially this is probably a restructuring of the Middle East. The fact that they're talking now because this is happening. Their call was about what's going on in Israel and how to deal with this situation. So it's yet to be seen what Saudi Arabia is going to do. But this is not a good development. Okay, that's it for this article. Okay, now I saw this on X. This is from the Institute for the Study of Wars X account. This is from, let's see, response to the Lion's Den call to mobilize in the West Bank from October 9th to October 11th. So I saw this and this was not on my radar. This is the first time that I saw this. So you see up here, this little icon. Let me see if I can, well, no, I'm not going to zoom in. Marches in response to marches in response to the Lion's Den call to mobilize. And there's like a little thing right here. And that icon stands for March. So there's been 2 marches, one right there and one in Ramallah. And then you can see these little icons that have the rifles inside of them. That stands for Clash, Small Arms Combat. So you can see that already in the West Bank, there has been small arms combat. Pretty much all over in the north, in the south, central West Bank, close to Jerusalem, and then over here, close to Jordan. I've also reported before, because I saw it on X, there's been clashes in Jerusalem in some of these Islamic neighborhoods and camps, because I guess there's like refugee camps around Jerusalem. So there is stuff taking place over here. It's not just Gaza. It's already starting to fan out. And this was the first time that I heard about the Lion's Den call to mobilize. So Lion's Den, it's this group right here. Okay, the Lion's Den is a Palestinian militant group operating in the Israeli-occupied West Bank. The group emerged in August 2022, so they're pretty new, a year of increased violence in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and takes its moniker from Ibrahim Nabulsi, a prominent militant from Nablus, nicknamed the Lion of Nablus, who was killed in July during an Israeli raid. It comprises members of other Palestinian militant organizations traditionally opposed by Fatah, including Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and disaffected members of Fatah, mainly young and secular. The group is reportedly based in the old city of Nablus. Okay, so it's this group. Now it seems that they have joined. I pulled this up on Jewish Virtual Library. Here are some of the main groups. They don't have Lion's Den on here, but their logo looks a lot like Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade, which, yeah, very, very close. Maybe some copyright issues there. Mm-hmm. But anyway, Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and then you have these other ones. You have these other ones that I would imagine would join the fight. I'm not so sure about the Palestinian Liberation Organization because I think that they're under control of the Palestinian Authority. I don't know. But you can see that there's a lot of potential right here. And these are just the ones that are in and around. Well, no, I think these are just in Israel because they don't have Hezbollah on here. So there's a lot of potential for many different groups to join, but the one that we're talking about right now is Lion's Den. So this is from Al Mayadeen. This is a Lebanese media outlet. Lion's Den calls for full-scale confrontation in West Bank. Okay, well, that's great. This was from yesterday. Yeah, this is from yesterday. The Palestinian resistant group Lion's Den called Wednesday on the Palestinian people in all Palestinian governorates to mobilize in general and take to the streets, men, women, and elders, at exactly 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and go out in cars, bicycles, and on foot marching against the occupation. In a statement, the group encouraged the Palestinian youth by saying, quote, look at this, "It is time for you to stand up with all courage to face fate," adding that they should, quote, "let the sound of your bullets sow death in the hearts of the Zionists," end quote. The group called the Palestinians to, quote, "turn the sky of the West Bank into a thick black cloud, burning tires in all the streets, attack the occupation checkpoints, and set fire to their agricultural areas," end quote. The statement also emphasized the quote, "international conspiracy and shameful Arab silence," saying that despite all this, Gaza will have its say and impose its will. The Lion's Den stressed that, quote, "international political justice is a false slogan. Force is what will protect the Palestinians and restore their rights." So it looks like they have joined in. Now we have the Lion's Den. So we have, okay, so let me go here. So we have Gaza and Hamas that started this. I've seen a few things saying that Palestinian Islamic Jihad is also joining in because there's some of them that are here in the Gaza Strip. Now we also have the Lion's Den that's mobilized and they're getting in on it, as well as just random people that are joining in. And then up in the north, there has been a little bit of activity from Lebanon and also from Syria over here, like rockets and mortars, and just a couple people that infiltrated the border, but then they were killed. But the main fight, like I said, I think that they're waiting for Israel to do the ground invasion, because in that way, some people across the world will view them as having more justification in attacking. So this is just waiting to happen, but it's waiting, I think, for this to happen down here. And once that does happen, I wouldn't be surprised if these other groups all join in. And as far as countries, I don't know. I don't know if that's just high hopes on the part of Hamas, but I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. Okay, so an interesting thing that happened today. Let's move on. This is from Visegrad 24. Breaking: the Israel Air Force struck Damascus International Airport in Syria just minutes before a plane with Iran's foreign minister, Hossein Amir Abdollahian, on board. Instead of landing, the plane is now heading home to Tehran. Okay, so Israel has struck Syria, specifically in Damascus, but not just Damascus. They also hit Aleppo. I saw that. Where is Aleppo? Let's see. Let me look it up. Aleppo. Search. Yeah, I thought it was up here. I just had to go further north. So what I saw, I don't have it pulled up, but what I saw was a report saying that they struck an airport up here in Aleppo and then closer to Israel in Damascus. Okay, so there's some action taking place there. And what I've seen is that the damage done to the airport is more significant than previous times, because Israel has attacked different airports in Lebanon and Syria before, but this one was much more severe. Okay. This is from Israel Alma. Lebanese militia groups have threatened to hit the U.S. aircraft carrier that has entered the eastern Mediterranean to support Israel. Anywhere within 200 kilometers to 350 kilometers of the Lebanese coast puts the U.S. forces in strike range of anti-ship missiles supplied by Iran. Okay, so our carrier group is being threatened. We already looked at that. Okay, Mario Nafal, footage just in. Video from the Palestinian Islamic Jihad Telegram. This shows this morning shows there is a preparation for a Palestinian response to Israel's raids. So I don't know if that's just in general, both in Gaza and the West Bank, but it is talking about this group, Palestinian Islamic Jihad. Okay, numbers. So it's been a little bit difficult to get the numbers as far as like how many have been killed. So this is from B&O News, and I've checked other websites. So in Gaza, about 1,400 have been killed, and then a total of about 1,300 Israelis have been killed. And then you can see here in the West Bank, 31 have been killed. So there is action taking place in the West Bank. And then in Lebanon, 5. Okay, now this number for Gaza does not include the militants that crossed the border on Saturday that perpetrated the assault and the invasion. And according to I-24 News, they say approximately 1,500 of them were killed. So you take 1,500 of the attackers, and then you have 1,400 of those killed in Gaza. And this is where I got these numbers. So let me show you my spreadsheet. So as of right now, approximately, this is the death toll. So about 189 military personnel killed on the Israeli side, and about 1,000 civilian, for a total of about 1,200. But it could be higher, it could be lower. It's it's a fluid situation. And then for the Palestinians, I'm just going to put down almost 3,000 that have been killed. And these numbers they're going to be conservative because, again, it's a fluid situation and it takes time to confirm deaths and casualties. So if we compare this to times before, so just let's think of 1,200 for Israel and 3,000 for Palestine or the Palestinians. This surpasses 2014 Operation Protective Edge, surpasses the Gaza War in 2008. So we've already passed up those two. Now, the Second Intifada saw more Palestinian deaths than what we see right now, but because we're only at the very beginning, and again, right now the Palestinians are at about 3,000, I think it's all but certain that it's going to surpass the Second Intifada. And as far as the Israeli side, it already has. Again, Israel was 1,200 right now, Palestinians 3,000. So this surpasses the First Intifada, Security Zone campaign. On the Israeli side, it surpasses the First Lebanon War, but not the Palestinian side. The 1978 South Lebanon conflict, that's been surpassed. And then that takes us back to the Yom Kippur War, where there were almost 2,700 Israelis killed. So we're not to that point yet. But again, I can only imagine that we are going to get to that point because it seems like everything is all but certain that this is going to escalate and the conflict is going to become wider and more people are going to join in. And so this is really bad. It's just a way of saying that already. It hasn't even been a week since this started, and it's already this bad to where we could go all the way back to the Yom Kippur War. And if we look at the 6-Day War, which was like the second major war of Israel's history, it's already surpassed that as far as the Israel side goes. Maybe not so much on the Arab side because they had a lot of losses, especially the Egyptians and Jordanians. But so this is historic what's happening, and it's not business as usual, and it's of a different character than all these other operations and intifadas and conflicts and wars. So we all need to really pay attention to what's happening. Let's see. Did I have anything else? No, that takes me through all my tabs. Okay. So now, just to finish off this video, let's talk about this. And I think that this is pretty appropriate for now, specifically. The misconception. We can't really know when it's going to happen. It could be now or 100 years from now. Okay, so we can't really know when it's going to happen. Let's first go to the scriptures. This is Matthew 24, verses 32 to 33. Now learn a parable of the fig tree. When his branch is yet tender and putteth forth leaves, ye know that summer is nigh. So likewise, when ye shall see all these things, know that it is near, even at the doors. So yes, we can know. The Savior said that, yes, we can know by looking at the signs of the times. 1 Thessalonians 5, verses 1 through 5. And let me just reformat this really quick. I continually kind of update how I want these spreadsheets to be. And sometimes that includes the format. So, okay. But of the times and the seasons, brethren, ye have no need that I write unto you. For yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. For when they shall say, peace and safety, sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. But ye, brethren, are not in darkness, that the day should overtake you as a thief. Ye are all the children of light, and the children of the day. We are not of the night, nor of darkness. Therefore, let us not sleep, as others do, but let us watch and be sober. Okay, and then we got D and C. D and C, section 45. That's one of the two big second coming sections of the Doctrine and Covenants, starting in verse 38. Even so it shall be in the day when they shall see all these things, then shall they know that the hour is nigh. And it shall come to pass that he that feareth me shall be looking forth for the great day of the Lord to come, even for the signs of the coming of the Son of Man. And they shall see signs and wonders, for they shall be shown forth in the heavens above and in the earth beneath. And boy, oh boy, have there been a lot of signs, especially this year. Okay, now we're on a talk by Elder Bernard P. Brockbank, assistant to the Council of the 12 Apostles, April 1976 General Conference. The name of the talk is The Leaves Are Commencing to Show on the Fig Tree. Before the second coming of Jesus Christ, certain promised signs and wonders are to take place, making it possible for his saints to know the approximate time of his coming. All right. And the name of the talk, in 1976, just 3 years after the Yom Kippur War, the leaves are commencing to show on the fig tree. We are now 50 years after that, and I think this is the end. Bruce R. McConkie, Millennial Messiah, page 29. The second coming is as a woman about to give birth to a child. She and her husband, the midwife at her side, and all who are informed, know the birth is near, but they do not know the day and the hour. Even when the pains commence, they cannot know what minute the expected one shall arrive. The approximate time, the times and the seasons, yes, but the precise time, no. But ye, brethren, Paul continues, are not in darkness, that the day should overtake you as a thief. Ye are the children of light and the children of the day. We are not of the night, nor of darkness. Okay, later, let's see. Later in the book, on the next page, he says, for our present purposes, it suffices to know that the children of the light shall know, not the day or the hour, but the approximate time of our Lord's return. His approximate time can certainly be narrowed down to a generation. Now look at that. It can be narrowed down to a generation. And this is why I have this spreadsheet, which is a collection of quotes in chronological order that have to do with specific generations. And there's always the one person that's like, oh, they've always said that. No, they haven't. No, they haven't. They have not always said, oh, you youth, you're going to be the ones that see the second coming. I know this because I have searched, and I have received so many different quotes from all of you. If you have more, let me know. But they have not made statements about specific generations before 1967. That's basically when this all started, 1967. There are a couple other ones before then, one by Joseph Fielding Smith in Doctrines of Salvation, where he ventured a guess, where he felt that there were some that were alive back then in 1936 that would see the second coming. And that's going to be true if it happens soon, especially if President Nelson himself sees it. He was born like 10 years before this. And then Joseph Smith himself, which is very interesting, back in 1843. And we're actually going to read that in just a minute. All right, let's go back to this. So Bruce R. McConkie says, yes, it can be narrowed down to a generation. On page 32, he says, he's referring to a discourse by Joseph Smith. He says, it was in this same sermon that he said, quote, were I going to prophesy, I would say the end of the world would not come in 1844, 5, or 6, or in 40 years. There are those of the rising generation who shall not taste death till Christ comes. End quote. Now look what Bruce R. McConkie says. The rising generation includes all those yet to be born to parents then living. Manifestly, many of these are now among us and will live after the year 2000 AD has come and gone. And you guys, we're reaching the limits of that. We are now just slightly after the year 2000. We're at the beginning part of this century. We're still within the first quarter of this century. So it is probably going to be very soon. And remember, I put this together, okay? So let's say they have an infant at the time that Joseph Smith said this, okay? They were not yet a year old. Okay, you go through time, you have plural marriage, and many people that engaged in plural marriage, they had children all the way until they died, as was the case of Joseph F. Smith. And say that you have a man that had a child really late, like in his 80s or something like that. Well, it turns out that child would have been born in about the year 1923, maybe 1924, the year that President Nelson was born. And President Nelson, as he keeps reminding us, he is with us even now in his old age. He is now in his 100th year. So Joseph Smith's prophecy, I think, has everything to do with President Nelson and his contemporaries. He will turn 100 years old next year. Okay? So let's move on from that. And then the last one that I have, this is from Elder Christoffel Golden of the 70, the October 2021 General Conference. He says, for those who have eyes to see, ears to hear, and hearts to feel, more than ever before, we are required to confront the reality that we are getting ever closer to the second coming of Jesus Christ. True, great difficulties yet await those on the earth at his return, but in this regard, the faithful need not fear. I'll tell you what, sometimes when we read these quotes, we think, oh, he's talking about members of the church. Like members of the church are still going to see great difficulties. There's going to be United Nations concentration camps for those that don't do this or don't take the mark of the beast, the microchip in the forehead and da-da-da. Which, by the way, that's not what that scripture means. We've already looked it up. We've already studied it. It doesn't have to do with the microchip or a barcode. That's not what the mark of the beast is. It's your actions and your thoughts. The things that are in your head, the things that you do with your hands. Are they worldly? Are they evil? Or are they good? But I don't think that when our general authorities speak, that they're just talking just about members of the church. And to think that, I think, is making ourselves a little bit too much at the center of everything. There is an entire world outside of our church. And when he says that great difficulties yet await those on the earth at his return, well, this was a couple years ago. This was almost exactly 2 years ago. And right now, the things that are happening in Israel, like I've said, are unspeakable. They are truly unspeakable. I'm surprised that some of these articles are actually describing some of the things that have taken place, which will give you nightmares, horrify you. I would be very careful. If you're sensitive, be careful with what you read, because what you see or what you hear cannot be unheard or unseen. So, we are in a very critical time, in my point of view. I feel it. It just, not only does it make sense, not only do I feel is it just common sense, when you look at the nature of this war and contrast it to all previous conflicts in Israel, it just makes sense that this really is it. This is a huge fight, and both sides are talking existentially. Both sides are saying, we are going to completely destroy you. Israel says they're going to completely destroy Hamas, and Hamas says they're going to completely destroy Israel, and they're asking for everybody to help. That hasn't happened before. This is like a battle to the death, essentially. We just don't know how big it's going to get. But it's not looking good as far as things returning back to normal. So, yeah, we don't know. We do not know when the birth is going to happen. If I had to guess, I would think that the woman right now is in the hospital, on the hospital bed, in the delivery room, just waiting, and that the contractions are happening. And the contractions are really bad right now. All right, well, that's going to be it for this one. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also, make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.